business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve Ramona and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast. Steve Ramona.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. I'm extremely thrilled to have you join us today. This podcast is dedicated to exploring the idea of doing business and living life with a servant's heart so you can truly make a difference in your work and in your life, because I believe they cross over. And if you don't, you're going to listen to my guests and I'm going to talk more about that, because leadership's all about that crossover. We also dedicated this show to motivate you, inspire you, and educate you. Whether you're an entrepreneur, stay-at-home mom, or a retired individual, this is something here that can really help you in your life or your business. Now, my guest is going to talk about the FDA. Ooh, federal, but that's cool because he's got a way to work with them and partner up with them to make sure you succeed. But while you're listening to him today, I want you to think about how you're going to serve yourself and how you're going to serve others today and what impact you create with that service today. Again, I said today 3 times because that's the key word. I'm still getting feedback like, I listened to your show, man. They were so great. And I heard about serving and I forgot to do it. Start today. Listen to this great guest. And then after you're done, figure out how you're going to make some impact today. It's so much fun to do. Trust me, I do it every day. And today's episode is proudly sponsored by an incredible partner, Pantheon Alliance. I want you to imagine being part of an exclusive community of high-income, successful business owners and entrepreneurs from very diverse industries. They're building a thought leader platform to help impact and change the world. For more information on this community, just reach out to me and I'll get you all the information you need. With that being said, FDA I mentioned, he's a very unique business. I told him before the show in our green room, I've done 550 shows now as of October 11th, 2024. It's the first time I'm going to talk to FDA, and I'm excited to do that because it can be complex, but with his help and his guidance, it can be less complex. Nicholas, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Well, my first question is, I've got a company with a product. It's food. Let's use that category. And I got to work with the FDA. Can I do it myself?
Well, I should have said this in the green room. So we actually do zero with food.
Okay, let's use another.
So we work in pharmaceuticals, biologics, and medical devices. And so for those, I would be more qualified to answer that question.
Well, let's use medical devices. And I'm glad to clarify. That's because, Nicholas, hosts can make mistakes. And I just made a mistake. But now we know more about you. So let's talk about, I have a medical device and I want to work with the FDA. How do you help me?
Well, the first thing you'd want to do if you want to bring a medical device to market is find out what the regulatory pathway is. So there's 2 primary ones. There are more, but I'll talk about the 2 primary. So the first one is a pre-market authorization. That's for a novel medical device that requires clinical research. Those can be very time-consuming and costly in order to go through that pathway, but that's very similar to drugs and biologics, where you have to go through either a new drug application that requires clinical research or a biologics licensing agreement that requires clinical research, and those can take 8 years and up to $1 billion in order to bring it from R&D all the way through commercial. So, like I said, very time intensive and costly. The other one that is a bit more popular is called the 510K application. There's also another one that's similar called a de novo, but I'll focus more on the 510K because the de novo is pretty similar. Where there's already an existing medical device on the market, and you're essentially just replicating it and you want to put something that's already on the market out there. We call those medical devices that are already on the market predicates. So essentially, you have to show that your medical device is substantially equivalent to what's existing on the market. You provide the required information that the FDA requests from you in an application that's called the 510(k) application. It goes through a 90-day review cycle, and if you've provided all of the information requested and it's satisfactory, then you have approval from the FDA to market that device commercially.
Going through you, it sounds like it's going to speed up the process, because if I jump in there alone, not knowing what to do, it's going to slow down the process, correct?
If you don't know what to do,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So there's, larger organizations that if they're doing lots of these every year, they could have their own internal regulatory department that if they know what they're doing, great. Then it's really just a matter of do they want to or do they want us to do it? If you try to do it on your own, I think like most things, you're gonna hit some bumps in the road, and they can be pretty severe. The problem with the FDA, the way I like to describe it, and it's not a problem with the FDA,
Yeah.
it's really a problem when you are dealing with the FDA, is what I'm trying to say, is that it's almost like talking to the boss that might interview you. You're always being evaluated by them.
Mm,
Even when you think the camera's not on, figuratively speaking, or you're just asking questions, if you cause them concern, that means they want more information. And the more concerned they are, the more information they request, the more time it takes, and the more it can cost. And then you can get kind of in this vicious loop where you can't. It's very difficult to break through and get the approval that you need. So just like anything, if you don't know what you're doing, I wouldn't recommend that you do it on your own. Why don't you figure it out from somebody that does?
yeah. So the FDA has no off the record. Everything's on the record that you say. There's no, oh, hey, can we just talk about this on the side? No, they've got to, and I can understand.
Well, believe it or not, people do that. You
Wow.
just can't identify who you are. So you can call the FDA and say, theoretically speaking, and then give them, something that you're thinking about, and they'll tell you that the question is, if you do that, is that person that you spoke to qualified to give you that information? Because you can't, just like everywhere, you can get bad information. The other thing is not everybody at FDA. So there's bad feedback, which is one thing. Then there's feedback where it's not bad, but it actually could go either way, right? Because when we look at FDA regulations and guidance documents, it's open to interpretation. So if you're talking to them anonymously and it's not being recorded, you don't have the insurance of documented meeting minutes where they agreed that something that you found, beneficial would hold water once you go through a formal process. So not to get too esoteric, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
kind of the way it is.
Yeah. And it's a process that's esoteric anyways. It's complex, and there's, if you don't know what you're doing, again, I go back to somebody like you helps. You're passionate about workforce. You wrote about it, you write about it. Why are you passionate about this with the FDA?
Why am I passionate about the FDA?
Yeah, working with
Um,
them and helping people.
so I'm not. I'm not
Okay.
passionate. I'm not passionate about the FDA. What I am passionate about is enhancing people's quality of life. And through my role as a CEO, I actually implemented the EOS, or the Entrepreneurial Operating System. While I was going through it, the implementer asked me in one of our sessions very early on, "Do you get a case of the Mondays?" And I said, "Actually, I don't. I don't get a case of the Mondays." And he said, "Why?" And I said, well, I know every day I'm waking up and I've got happy employees and they're really, they've got everything that they need in order to be passionate about what they're doing. The contractors we work with, vendors, suppliers, clients, the communities that we contribute to. I know every day I'm able to enhance people's quality of life. So it's not so, and the FDA is the conduit in which I'm able to achieve that. But the reality is I'm not passionate about the FDA. I'm passionate about enhancing people's quality of life.
Servant
And
heart.
that goes to the patients that actually touch the products that we are involved in.
Right, right. I love that. Like I said, it's the definition of a servant's heart. My passion's for the people. Happens to be the FBA is what you work with today. Tomorrow might be something else. Let's jump into your book. Very excited to talk about that. Talk about the mission of the book and your 15 pillars that are tied to the book.
Sure. So I'll actually provide a little more information that you didn't ask for, which is, why did I write a book?
Okay.
Um, so, because it's going to tie into the answer. So, I've been a member of Vistage, which is the world's largest peer advisory group, for over 10 years. I've held myself accountable to read 1 to 2 books every quarter. 95% of those are on leadership and management and business. I have my MBA. I've been the CEO of a company for 17 years. And the reason I provide that background is just to show or demonstrate that I'm a continuous learner, right? I like to say that I live in a constant state of being comfortably uncomfortable, in the sense that I'm comfortable that I've got control over things, but I'm always uncomfortable because the fact of the reality is, and this goes for every single person on the planet, there's something you could be doing today that if you were doing it, you would be more productive and successful, and you don't know what it is yet. So you have to go and find out what that is. And as soon as you find it and you decide to implement it, what's the next thing? So it never stops, right? So to come back to the book, I had somebody actually in my Vistage group and elsewhere, not just there. And they said, Nick, you think differently. You've got a very kind of unique way of looking at things. And the reason that struck a chord with me is because in that moment or in those moments, I realized I wasn't just regurgitating this book or that seminar, right? I had taken all of this information that I had accumulated and subconsciously created a system or a philosophy that was unique to me. So for that reason, I decided to create a Word document called Book Notes, and I created 4 pages of book notes over time. And then I saw a advertisement for a publisher, contacted them. We wrote the book, published it in June, and it became a #1 bestseller on Amazon.
Powerful. Congratulations. You're affecting a lot of lives. Talk about the 15 pillars that are in the book that people can learn about.
Sure. So the philosophy of the book, which is going to lead into the 15 pillars, is we all at one point or another have been passionate about our job. And when we're passionate about our job, we exert certain behaviors, right? We show up on time, we care about the quality of our work, we're innovative and creative, we help others, we do the little extras, we're positive and it vibrates throughout the organization, right? We also have been resentful. And so if you look at the cover of the book, it's got like a little sun coming over the horizon with a spectrum, because that represents the spectrum that we're all on between passion and resentment. Same person, different behaviors. Don't show up on time. Don't care about the quality of your work. Aren't innovative and creative. Checking in, checking out. You could abuse the company or become destructive and badmouth it and all sorts of things. Now, generally speaking, for those people that are really looking to advance themselves, you're not going to stay in that position for very long. Oh, my phone's ringing. But Oh, it's still ringing in the background. Can we pause this?
Yeah, go ahead and just turn it off. We're good.
Okay.
You're good. Well,
I think that's the last ring. I
okay,
apologize for that.
no
I
worries. Life
I
life
thought
gets in the way. It's
I thought I knew how
no
to
worries.
shut it off. But so same person, different behaviors. And like I was saying, if you're a, ambitious person, you're probably not going to stay in that role. And there are people that stay in that role, right? So you've got if you're running a department, a group of people, you know who the passionate people are. They're the A players, very easy to identify. You can also very easily identify the resentful people, right? They're very easy to identify. Really, it's those people in the middle, and am I getting the most out of those individuals? So it's called the passionate workforce, how to create and maintain maximum employee engagement. And so really it's about if I could create an atmosphere whereby the probability that people are going to show up in a passionate mindset is optimized, then I know that their work performance is also going to be optimized. So I developed 15 pillars. My belief is if you can optimize your ability to deliver on each of those 15 pillars, the probability that you're going to have a group of people that report to you in a passionate mindset is very high, right? So I have an assessment tool. And so if anybody is familiar with the NPS metric, is very similar to that, right? So you want to be in the 9 to 10. That's where you're doing good. 7 to 8, adequate, room for improvement. If you're below 7, you've got some things you really need to work on. I encourage in the book that as a leader and manager, you rate yourself and then you distribute an anonymous survey with SurveyMonkey or whatever you decide to use, and have your team rank you on each of those 15 pillars. And then ask yourself, how close or far am I? And it goes both ways. If you think you're the best thing since sliced bread and you give yourself all tens, fine. But then if you're seeing sixes, fives, sevens, what you perceive to be the reality is not. Similarly, if you go, oh man, I try so hard, I'm always not, delivering on what I want to do, and I feel bad, and da 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 da, and you give yourself all fives, and everybody's giving you nines, you need to take that into account, right? So the goal here is continuous improvement, and it moves. So in one day you might get all nines and an eight, right? And then a year later, that same score, it's going to change. Some are going to go up, some are going to go down. Focus on the ones that are below 9 and work to get them up.
Numbers don't lie.
Wait,
It
what do
is
they
so powerful.
say? They
I know.
say
I was going to think of that phrase. I came up. Numbers don't lie, but there's
it's
uh
no, it's something like it's like feelings talk and numbers scream or something like that.
yeah, no, that's exactly it. That's not what I was thinking,
Is
but
that
that's
what it was?
actually, yeah, but
Okay.
that's a really good one. And to be a leader too, you always need to be grading yourself, because when you're mentoring people, you may be mentoring wrong, and if you don't understand why, you're not really a good leader because you're
Well,
not mentoring.
there's no control without measurement.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's one topic in the book or one thing that really stands out that people are going to read and go, wow, that I can do right away?
That I can do right away. There are aspects 90-95% of this book can is going to be utilized by any leader and manager. So perhaps I'll actually answer it the opposite way, which is,
Okay.
um, but there are points of this book whereby you have to be in a position of authority in order to implement some of the things that I'm recommending. I am an advocate for unlimited paid time off, and interestingly enough, I'm against merit-based compensation, and I'm for profit sharing. And so I think a lot of people, especially in sales, are going to hit the end button on this podcast I would encourage you not to, or even buy the book and figure out why I advocate for that. But to my point, even those people that aren't in a position to implement those, hopefully they're in a position to advocate and speak to somebody that either has that authority or reports to somebody that has that authority to say, hey, I got a different perspective from this book. Here's some of the data behind how this could benefit our company, and I wanted to present it to you.
Yeah, it's such a servant's heart, and it's bringing value to everybody. And what I'm hearing is communication is so big.
For sure, yeah. And as it pertains to communication, that is pillar number 7, and it is communicate respectfully and candidly. So you have to be respectful in the way that you communicate with people. I like to say that everybody should be treated with the same level of everybody should be treated differently and with equal amount of respect. Um, and then candor, meaning we're not going to beat around the bush. We're not going to walk on eggshells. We're going to say it exactly the way it needs to be said because that is the most effective way. And if you're doing it in a respectful manner, you're doing your job in that dialogue. What the other person does, you do not have control over.
Yeah, that's well said. I love that. Canada is so big. We're coming to the end here. You have a podcast. I love podcast hosts. Tell me about your podcast.
So I have 2 podcasts. The first one is called the Life Science Rundown. There will be few people that would be interested in that because that is a technical podcast where we talk about industry related topics, things coming out of the agency, guidance documents, how to best administer quality and regulatory and clinical with an organization, and even more esoteric topics, if you can believe that's even possible. But that one actually, I've got, I think, over 45 episodes. So that one was really the leader in me wanting to do a podcast. The second one I started recently, and it came from my book, which is it's called the Passionate Workforce Podcast. That one is on leadership and management topics. That one is newer. I think we've got 2 to 3 episodes. But we're always looking to kind of build that library and provide some really good information to those people that are interested.
Great content. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think the latter would be probably more my audience.
I
The
would
first
agree.
podcast, yeah. But if you're in
Yeah.
life science and all that, jump on that because there are some
Well,
people.
you could always bookmark if you're not in the life science industry, and you might still want to bookmark the life science
Okay.
rundown just in case you have insomnia.
There you go. No more sleep pills. Just listen to this podcast. Just kidding. Half kidding. Well, let's end up with some fun. We're at the end here. So I always like to ask this question to the guest to get to know you a little bit more. So you have a reservation at a restaurant. It's a table of 4. Obviously, you're going to occupy one of the seats. And the 3 empty seats, who are you going to invite, dead or alive? Why would they be invited to the table? And what food would you order?
Wow, that's a great question. I would invite Jesus.
Amen.
Um, he's my Lord and Savior, which is why I would invite him. Um, I have a lot of respect for Elon Musk. So I think I would probably he's jumping into my head. So I think I would want Elon Musk there. And then the third person, um, again, I'm just going with gut. Probably Oprah Winfrey. I did read a book that she co-authored with another gentleman that's a professor at Harvard, and it was the title escaped me, but it was on happiness, and it was so good. It was
Love
so
it.
good. So I would say probably those 3. What would I order? Well, if I'm being selfish, which is not in line with the servant's heart, I would order sushi. Um, if I wanted to be braggadocious, I would order Brazilian cuisine because my wife is Brazilian. We used to live in Brazil during the summertime, so I have a very strong admiration for the Brazilian cuisine. And then after that, if we're trying to talk, I'd probably get a table of apps. It's a lot easier to engage in deep conversation when you're, eating a chicken finger as opposed to, a fork full of spaghetti.
I love it. If I could use this word right, esoteric table, Jesus, Elon Musk, and Oprah Winfrey from very different, diverse backgrounds. I'd love to be at that table too. And just so the audience, some people ask me, Jesus is leading the pack right now. He's way ahead, which just makes me very happy.
Likewise.
You've been such a great guest. You've really put out their leadership in such a humble and esoteric way, in a sense of, here's the way to do it. Anybody can do it. And I appreciate that, because that's what a servant heart does. But I'm sure people listening are going, how can I find Nicholas? So how can they support you and contact you?
I used to, well, I shouldn't say I used to say that I had a Facebook because I never pointed people there, although that's been hacked. And so if you find me on Facebook, it's not me and I can't get it back. So that's unfortunate. Otherwise, I will try to sell you Bitcoin. So stay away from that one. The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. And it's Nicholas with an H, Capman with no H, so it's not Chapman. And just about the book, if you want to find that, it's everywhere you can find it, softcover, hardcover, electronic, and Audible. So wherever you can find books and Audible books, you can go there. And then the podcast, you might be able to find it on LinkedIn if you do enough searching. It probably would be easiest if you went to the FDA Group's website, which is thefdagroup.com.
There you go. Easy enough. And the book is right behind your left shoulder. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see with the cool little, I love that picture on there. It's so cool. All the colors. Nicholas, again, thank you. This has been awesome. And audience, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And the reason I ask is two things. One, you have access to his podcast again, especially if you get a medical device or something like that. Here's a great resource for you, the fdagroup.com, or reaching out to Nicholas on LinkedIn. Also, to family and friends. You're talking to a family or friend, they're talking about, hey, I got to talk to the FDA and they're fit this categories that Nicholas worked with. Send them the podcast. Go, hey, I'll just listen to this guy. He's fantastic. And you get to know Nicholas. That's why I think the tool of the podcast is missing. It's a great way to network and share what people are doing with their passion. And as always, me and Nicholas want to thank you so much for watching or listening to his podcast. And we'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. And don't forget to comment on the YouTube as well. We'll talk to you all very soon. Bye-bye.